Joining me now is Connor Keating, a researcher, political researcher, St. Vincent College in Pennsylvania. Connor, thanks for your patience and thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much, John.
All right, so Connor, let's go over these. Let's go over these Virginia numbers again, where we've got 15 minutes here or so. Let's go over these numbers and just kind of start over because I didn't grasp everything that you were saying. So just take it from the top.
All right, so just for reference, I actually wrote this all down in the doc because I was going back and forth between my own pages. But so I was looking at the New York Times, which I don't know if it's fake news or not, but I'm going to trust them for now because it's the only data that I can look at. And so they have 5,825,000 registered voters, not likely voters, registered voters in Virginia. And you compare that with 2016, where only approximately 4 million actually voted. And looking to 2020, so far, this is as of yesterday, that 952,000 people have requested absentee ballots. That's 16% of the total state population. And so I was looking at these numbers, and I'm thinking the absentee vote, or at least the percent of people asking for absentee ballots, is relatively high. It's far higher than it was in 2016, and obviously that has to do with the virus and whatnot. But I would wonder, what's the gap in those absentee ballots? Are they going, 70-30 for the Democrats, or are they a bit closer? Because then that, to me, would say something about how people might be voting in these longer lines you're saying for in-person early voting in places like Fairfax County, Prince William County, and even Trump country, where I've heard that the early voting is up by as much as 60%. So I think that's going to be something to keep an eye on when you're going to be looking at a close state like Virginia is going to be. And also, just another question, also going off of what you were saying with Congressman Ben Cline, is why is Trump really coming to Newport News? I mean, he wouldn't be coming here if Biden was winning by 10 points. I mean, I know if I was president, I definitely wouldn't be coming to Virginia if my internal polling showed I was losing it by 10.
Connor, he's not going. He's not going to Sacramento. He's not going to the Valley in California. He's not going to Oregon. He's not going to Massachusetts. He's not going to Connecticut. He's not going to New York. Okay, he's not going to states that he can't win. They got 44 days. There's a bunch of swing states that are tied. That's where he's going to spend his time. You're not going to waste time going to a state that you can't win. And this idea that, well, he's coming to Virginia to reach North Carolina voters. If you wanted to reach North Carolina voters, you would go to North Carolina. Newport News is not a North Carolina media market. It's not even close. It's hours away from where the people live. So that's an asinine thing that Politico did. But let's get to your numbers, right? So we expect that over 60% of Democrat voters are going to vote by mail because they have been now, they are part of the fear-mongering set that thinks if they go vote, they're going to die or something. So they're too scared to vote. That's why they will not knock on doors. They will not go outside. They will not do anything. So they're going to vote by mail. So we know that absentee ballots are going to be up, and we know that the overwhelming majority of those are Democratic voters. But they're not new voters. They're just replacing in-person voting with a mail-in ballot.
Right.
The number to look at is those in line to do early voting, regardless of the location. The majority of those are not Democratic voters. There are voters because they're in line, they're waiting, they have a mask on because they have to, and they're going to vote, and they're going to fill out a ballot, and there's a bunch of people around. Those that are fearful of COVID-19, they're doing the mail-in ballot. They're not standing in a line. And as far as the long lines in Fairfax and Prince William County, one person told me there's only one location open in Fairfax, so obviously there's going to be a line. But when you look at the lines going on in Southwest Virginia, who do you think those people? They're up 60%. They're voting for Trump. Period. 80, 85, right. 87, 86, 88%. That's the numbers that the Trump campaign that we're looking at This is why we've got Virginia back in play.
That's absolutely right. And you brought up the 60%, and even a lot of these in-person early voters, again, as you said, it doesn't matter where the location is. They're going to be more likely to vote for Trump than for Joe Biden or whoever the Democrat is that they're voting for. The mail-in ballots more likely to go Democrat, as you said. And again, that's what I'm bringing up with what's the gap in the absentee ballots? Is it 70-30 for the Democrats, or is it more like 55-45? Because I think that will also point to who may be voting for who in these longer lines that you're seeing across the state. I mean, it's not just in Trump country where you're seeing these longer lines. It's even up in Northern Virginia, which tends to vote Democrat. They're down in Southeast Virginia, which is more of a swing area. And they're statewide. It's everywhere. And I think that's a good sign for Trump and Daniel Gade running for Senate and Republicans across the state.
Why do you think the early voting lines are a good sign for Trump?
I think because the absentee ballots are up and they're more likely to vote for Democrats, and the early voting in person is more likely to go well for Donald Trump and for Republicans across the state. As you said, people that are, more inclined to vote for Trump and Republicans are people that will more likely vote in person because I don't want to say the virus hasn't affected them as much, but they're not as bothered to go out and vote in person and make sure their ballot is secure and it's going to be counted correctly. So I think these long lines are a really good sign, especially in these more Republican areas of the state and even statewide where it could be showing a very competitive race.
All right, so the question is this. If you're not going to vote because you are afraid of getting COVID, and so that's why you want an absentee ballot, you want a mail-in ballot, you want to do it in the safety of your home. In fact, I was just driving through Virginia last night, coming back from Amtrak, I believe, or maybe I was on Amtrak looking out the window. I was in Virginia, and I saw a huge billboard. I just can't remember right now where it was. It was in Northern Virginia when I was coming out of D.C. getting home last night. But I saw a huge billboard, and it actually said, this is in Virginia, and it said, "Stay home, save lives." Stay home, save lives. It's September 23rd, and there's a digital billboard. I didn't catch who sponsored it, but it had somebody in a mask, and it said, "Stay home, save lives." I mean, people are still pushing that. Like, if you don't go out, you're going to save lives. Just stay home, eat home, vote home, work from home, do Zoom. Don't go outside. Don't get any air. Shut the windows and the blinds. So, if you're a Democrat and you're fearful of contacting the virus, getting contact with people, voting on November 3rd, why would you vote early? Because it's the same thing, isn't it?
I think that. Are you talking about voting early in person, or are you talking about voting early by mail?
In person.
Okay, so voting early in person, and sorry, what's the question?
So we know that the overwhelming people that are going to vote on November 3rd in Virginia are going to vote for Trump. We already know that because they don't look at COVID-19 the same. All right, so they're going to go vote on election day. We're gonna win that vote big. Here's my question. What's the difference of voting in person on November 3rd or voting in person early?
I think it's just a personal preference. I mean, obviously,
but there's no difference. If you're not voting on election day because you're fearful of contracting the virus on election day by voting, you have the same fear if you're voting early because you're standing in line, you're waiting, there's a bunch of people there, right? You go in, it's crowded. Right. So the thought is early voters are going to go for Trump. November 3rd voters are going to go for Trump. Absentee ballots are going to go for Biden in a huge way, right? Huge.
Right.
But these are the numbers we're looking at. We're looking at these early voting lines, and we're saying, hey, there's something happening here, and it's good for us because last year 4 million people voted. This year it's going to be 4.5 million, We already know how many votes the Democrats have. If we can get our people out, we're gonna win Virginia. Your analysis, Connor, spot on. This thing's in play. Virginia is in play. Tell me I'm wrong.
You're absolutely not wrong.
I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you, Virginia is going to be a nail-biter. We got actually a shot to win Virginia by what we're seeing. Connor, thanks for the analysis.